We are starting our first session of the Mandukya Upanishad, and this comes after we've studied the Isha Upanishad, the Kena Upanishad, and the Kathopanishad. And the reason we picked the Mandukya Upanishad as the next one to focus on is because we're trying to build on what we already know. And Mandukya Upanishad, we've already been exposed to a lot of concepts in the Mandukya Upanishad when we have studied some of the other Upanishads, and particularly the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, if you remember. So we thought we would start with this one. And I just want to preface it by saying that of all the Upanishads we've studied to date, I think I can speak for both Val and myself, this one required the maximum amount of research because it is also one of the most commented upon Upanishads. Even though it is the shortest, it is only 12 verses. But the amount, how much is packed into each of these, and how many people have expounded on it, and the fact that it's the very at the heart of the Advaita Vedanta philosophy means that there is a lot to get through. And so it's been, we had to think through how much do we actually, present. And I think what we present is probably the simplest version. And I have to start off by saying that I, at least, am learning so much and I have gained so much just by reading, some of the works on it. I'm truly grateful, and I would encourage you to read some of these works. So these have been our references, and with many thanks to Ashokan for sourcing so many of these documents for us. I'm not sure if we just went on our own, we would have spent a lot more time trying to find it. But the very first one is the Principal Upanishads by Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. And reading it, I was just again, so struck by the quality of the language and the insights, and to think that a person like him had been the president of India. And then, of course, Swami Guru Bhaktananda, who has become, almost like the textbook that we use. And then the word-by-word translation of the Upanishad, we found a document by Michael Douglas Kelly, and he very helpfully also gives us a link to the Sanskrit dictionary, so that also helped. And then Swami Paramatmananda's his thoughts on it, and then Swami Krishnananda's of the Divine Life Society. So these are some of the ones that we've started out with, and I'm sure this list will continue to grow. But the reason I put this up here is to really encourage you to say that what we present in this is but a glimpse into the richness of each of these. So while we present our thoughts, when you actually go back and read some of these source materials, I think you will get a little bit more of the poetry and the elevated thought, and how these writers and thinkers and philosophers have built on these different concepts. So that's why I wanted to spend a few more minutes on the references than we normally do. So the questions for discussion, we're only going to talk about the Shanti mantra and the first two verses of the Mandukya Upanishad. What are the Upanishads and what is the main teaching of all the Upanishads? So every time when we start off, one of a new Upanishad study, Val very helpfully takes us through an overview of the Vedas and the Upanishads, where the Upanishads fit in, and why they're important. What is, in a single line, what is each Upanishad about? Which is why, I'd encouraged you to say, even if you have not attended some of the other Upanishads, it would be helpful, because this session just sets the context for where does this all fit in? What kind of questions is it answering? Why does it continue to be relevant? And then we'll talk about what is the focus of teaching in this Upanishad. And as most of you know from previous sessions at the Mandukya Upanishad, at the heart of it is a discussion of Om and its symbolism. Okay? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Val to lead us through an overview of the Vedas.
Thank you, Ranjini. So now the introduction to Vedas and Upanishads. Veda meaning knowledge, directly revealed to seers, the rishis, and preserved by oral tradition. They are called Shrutis. They are revered as Sanatana truths, breathed by God, visioned by seers. They are the result of process of introspection and graced by the divine, Deva Prasada. So, the illustration on the right, the Vedas are four: Rig Veda, the songs of praise; Yajurveda, the sacrificial formulas; Samaveda, the melodies; the Atharva Veda, the magic formulas. Though each Veda is one book, it's divided into two branches or signs. One, Veda Purva, which explains about Karma Kanda. There are three kinds of karmas in the Bhagavad Gita: Kayika karma, the bodily action; Vachika karma, the verbal action; and Manasika karma, which is mental action. The Upasana Kanda, the worship, comes under this section. 2. Veda Anta, which is the Vedanta, explains the Jnana Kanda, the knowledge or philosophical aspect of the Upanishads. So, the Karma Kanda represents the feet of a man, Upasana Kanda, the heart, and the Jnana Kanda, the head. Each Veda has four subdivisions, as you can see on the right: the Samhitas, which has mantras and prayers; the Aranyakas, the rituals and sacrifices; the Brahmanas, commentaries on rituals and sacrifices, yajnas; and the Upanishads, the spiritual knowledge portion, which we are studying. So, around 108 Upanishads are known, of which the first dozen or so are the oldest, 8 to 7 BC, the most important, and are referred to as the principal or main Mukhya Upanishads. They are Vedanta in its purest form. Those 10 Upanishads have been expounded by Adi Sankaracharya. So now, what are Upanishads? Upanishads are the last section of each Vedas, as we mentioned earlier. They represent Brahma Vidya, the pursuit of wisdom by the way of life that results in the knowledge of Brahman. We all may have these existential questions like, what is the world? Who am I? Why am I here? What becomes of me after death? Such questions are asked and answered in the Upanishads. Most of the Upanishads are guru-disciple dialogue in a questions and answers format. But this one is an exemption. So, Upanishad means, Upa means nearness, Ni means totality, Sat means to sit. So, Upanishad means sitting nearby the Guru devotedly. By sitting nearby, the secret teachings are imparted to the disciple. So, now the Mandukya Upanishad comes from Atharva Veda, as also the Mundaka and Prasna. The Upanishads don't present a coherent or unified philosophy and often contain repetition and even contradictions. Attempts to unify them came later through philosophers like Gaudapatacharya, Ramanujacharya, Adi Sankaracharya, and Madhvacharya, among others. So now, the next slide, the one-word summary of the 10 Mukhya Upanishads. So all Upanishads teaching goal is Brahma Vidya, and they do that in different aspects or ways. Here, the first three Upanishads we have studied. One, Isha, talks about karma without attachment. The Kena explains God exists behind natural process. The Katha Upanishad explains immortality is simply union with God. The one Mandukya, which we are going to study, detailing meaning of Om. Aitreya creation and pure consciousness. Mundaka, knowledge and wisdom. Taittiriya, thou art Brahman. Prasna, discourse on prana. Chandogya, Tattvamasi. Svatitesvara, meditation, the way to God. So now, Mandukya Upanishad. So this Upanishad belongs to Atharva Veda. The Upanishad is attributed to revelation of the sage Manduka. That's how the name is Mandukya Upanishad. It's also said Mandukya means like a frog because it makes a big leap like a frog, hopping to 4 corners of a room or 4 lily pads. It explains the 4 quarters of Atman. This Upanishad is the shortest of all, but very powerful, comprising only 12 verses. Gaudapada Acharya, Adi Sankaracharya's Guru's Guru, compiled Mandukya Karikas, which has 215 verses for these 12 verses. So, what are the 12 mantras explained? Mantra 1 introduces the essence of Ankara, the Om, about Om, Omkara Vichara, the analysis of Ankara, Om. Mantra 2 introduces the essence of Atma Vichara, self-enquiry. Then, mantras 3 to 7 details the Atma Vichara, and 8 to 12 details the Ankara Vichara. So, this Upanishad is the touchstone of the Advaita philosophy. So, with this, I'll hand over to Ranjini to add further and take us to the verses.
Thank you, Val. So let me see if I can switch to...
Ranjini, back to you.
Yes, I am trying to get it. 1 minute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, my internet connection is unstable, so I'm not quite sure how we're going to get through this. But let's stick to it as long as we can. So I thought, for the importance of the Mandukya Upanishad, I picked up this quote from Swami Krishnananda. Mandukyam ekam eva alam mumukshunam vimuktaye. It says for the liberation of the mumukshu or the seeker, the Mandukya alone is enough. And if you are able to understand the true meaning of this single Upanishad, there may not be a necessity to study any other Upanishad, not even the Chandogya or the Brihadaranyaka, because the theme of the Mandukya Upanishad is a direct approach to the depths of human nature. So this is from the Mandukya Upanishad, an exposition by Swami Krishnananda. So unlike the Kathopanishad, which started with a story, this Mandukya Upanishad has no story, no allegories. It's an aphorism. All the Upanishads are very terse, but this one is incredibly terse, and that's why it's open to so much of interpretation. And as Val said, Gaudapada, who is Shankaracharya's guru's guru, has written the Karika, and we will not cover that, even though some of the insights from that will be included in what we present. So let's start with the Shanti mantra. And like other Shanti mantras, I'm going to say it in a sing-song way. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhi Yajatraha Sthiraiyangai Tushtuvaham Satanubhihi Vyashema Deva Hitam Yadayuhu Swastina Indra Vrittashravah Swastina Pusha Vishwavedah Swastina Tarksha Arishthanemihi Swastina Brihaspati Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So there's a lot packed into this, and even to unpack some of the reference in this, let's start with the word-by-word translation. Om is the sacred syllable. Bhadram, good fortune. Karnebhi, with our ears. Shrunuyama Devas, an appeal to the gods to say, may we hear good fortune with our ears. Akshabhi with our eyes. Yajatras, you who are worthy of worship. Stirai, with these firm angaiha, limbs. Tushtutvan, having praised. Saha, he. Tanubhis, with bodies. Vyashema, we should attain. Deva is God. Hita, bestowed. Deva hitam is bestowed by the gods. Yat is which. Ayu who is your lifespan. Swasti, well-being. So with that, then we get into the Swastina Indras. Indra is the lord of the gods. Vriddha, the great one. Shravas, the renowned Lord Indra. Swasti, seeking the well-being. From Pushan, Vishwa, the universal Vedas. Pushan of the giver of knowledge. Tarkshas, Tarksha is a mythical horse-like being mentioned in the Rig Veda and also as later as Garuda. Arishtanemi means the unblemished outer rim of a wheel in which the spokes are inserted, and we'll talk a little bit more about the symbolism. Again, seeking Swasti, the well-being, our well-being. Brihaspati, preceptor of the gods. Dadhatu, may one grant. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So what does the Shanti mantra invoke? It starts with Om, and it says, Devas, gods, may we hear good fortune with our ears. You who are worthy of worship, may we see good fortune with our eyes. So it's beseeching the gods for us to hear good fortune, all auspicious things with our ears, see only auspiciousness with our eyes. May we, endowed with bodies of firm limbs, offering praise to Him, attain the full duration of life bestowed on us by the gods. May my limbs be firm. You who have blessed me with this body, allow me to live my full life in praise of you. May Indra of great renown grant us well-being. It starts now with an invocation to Indra. May Pushan of the universal knowledge, the Vishwa Vedas, grant us well-being. May Takshya, Arishtanemi, the destroyer of evil, grant us well-being. May Brihaspati, the preceptor of the gods, grant us well-being. Om, peace, peace, peace. So there's one thing I wanted to point out about this Shanti mantra and the gods that are being invoked. Now, if you remember, in the Vedic period, the older Vedic period, the gods, who were the gods we worshipped? It was these gods. Indra, Pushan, Taksha, Brihaspati, Surya, Hiranyagarbha, Virat, right? These were the gods that were worshipped. The gods we worship today come much later. So these earliest of the Shanti mantras invoke the gods of that time who were worshipped as gods in those days. So I just picked out a few of these because these Indra we are familiar with. Taksha I was not familiar with. So I did some research into it. And Taksha is a mythical horse. And if you read, Greek and Roman and other philosophies, this notion of the winged horse appears in that literature too. Taksha in this case, in the Rig Veda, is mentioned as a mythical horse and later as a bird that became Garuda, Vishnuvahana, symbolic of speed, victory, and protection from evil. Indra, as you know, is the god of the gods. He reigns over all the gods. He's a great warrior, and he's also the bringer of rain. Pushan is one of the Adityas, of the sun god, and he's considered the god of meetings, protector of travelers and cattle. So quite a wide portfolio of a lot of disconnected things, but this is the best we have in terms of context. And Brihaspati, whom continues, even today, is he's the preceptor of all the gods, right? He's the god of wisdom, of speech, of spiritual guidance. Now, the gods that we're talking about here are, remember, this is not the These are forms of the Saguna Brahman. Again, if you remember the history, the Nirguna Brahman without form, the unmanifest, is who we will now see in the next two verses. All these gods being invoked are the manifest versions of the gods who are in existence to help run the universe, and those are whom are being invoked in the Shanti mantra. All right, let's go to the first verse of the Mandukya Upanishad. This one says, Om iti etat aksharam idam sarvam tasya upavyakyanam bhutam bhavat bhavishyat iti sarvam omkarah eva yaccha anyat trikala atitam tat api omkar eva. Starts with Harihi Om, salutations to Om. Iti, this Om, aksharam, the syllable, idam, sarvam, of all. This syllable is everything. Of that, upavyakyanam, further explanation, is being offered. Bhutam, what has been. Bhavat, today, the present. Bhavishyat, the future, that which is coming into being. Sarvam, Omkara, everything is Om. Omkara, the syllable of Om, eva, indeed, yat, which, cha, and, anyat, other, trikala, of all the three, past, present, and future, atita, something that is even beyond time, the transcendent, trikalatitam, transcendent to all of these three, tat api Om kara, even that is Om. So what's the meaning? Om, the syllable of Om is all, this world and also beyond it. And on that, further explanation is offered. So this is establishing what this Upanishad is going to be about. It says, Om is a syllable that for everything, and that is what we're going to talk about in this Upanishad. It encompasses that which is past, something that has already come into being, present is becoming, and the future that will become. All of this is Om. And that which is beyond the three periods of time, even that is Om. And what lies beyond the dimension of time? The transcendent or the unmanifest. So the Nirguna Brahman, before any of creation came into existence, time is an aspect as a dimension of creation, existence. After Hiranyagarbha was first came into being, then we have the concept of time and causality, predating all of that, predating creation. The transcendent, unmanifest Nirguna Brahman, Om, also encompasses that. So two things to pay attention to in this particular verse. The Upanishads begin a detailed breakdown of Om as representing both the transcendent, unmanifest Brahman, which lies beyond humanity's full experience, perception, or grasp, as well as the immanent. Immanent means that Brahman which is knowable, perceivable, graspable. All that you see around us, these five senses that we've talked about so much in the Kathopanishad and the Kenopanishad, these five senses, what we can pick up from this manifest world, gives us a clue to who is that Nirguna Brahman. So this Shabda Om, the syllable of Om, encompasses both. Omkara is everything. It includes and transcends the dimensions of time, manifest and unmanifest creation, and third, matter, whether it's an inert object or a sentient living being. So all three dimensions are included in Om. So the dimension of time, it transcends that, transcends both what is manifest and unmanifest. And third, all matter, whether it's a rock or a tree or a human being, Om encompasses everything. Let me go to verse 2, and then we'll come back to a commentary on these. Sarvam hi etat brahma, ayamatma brahma, saha ayam atma chatushpat. Very short. Sarvam, indeed, all, etat, this Brahma, this is Brahman. I am this Atma, Brahman. This Atma is also Brahman. This Atma, Chaturpad, four. Pad is quarters. Chatushpat is four-quartered. So what does this shloka say? All this is verily Brahman. This Atman is Brahman. This Atman has four quarters or padas. Very, very terse, right? It says, we have just established in the first one that everything is Brahman. Now, there's a very, very important point that is you have to pay attention to. This Atman is Brahma. I am Atma Brahma. This is considered the Mahavakya of this Upanishad and the foundation for the Advaita Vedanta, which says there is no duality. Atman and Brahman are the same, right? Here it says that this Atman is Brahman. The Atman has four quarters or padas, and Shankaracharya says these are not four padas or four parts like the four legs of an animal, but it is like four parts of a coin, where the first three have to be there to complete the fourth and present a coin in its entirety. So these four quarters are an inseparable part of a whole. What is it that they're talking about? It also starts now to talk about the padas that are being mentioned here. If you look at the symbol of Om on the top of this page, it starts to relate it to the states of consciousness. What are the states of consciousness? When you're awake. Vishwa, the waking state. Taijasa, when you are dreaming. It's a different state of consciousness. You don't know what's going on, but it is a state of consciousness. Pragya, the deep, dreamless sleep. And then Turiya, that moment of silence, the state of spiritual consciousness where unity with the self is experienced. And what lies between the first three states and Turiya? It's Maya, which needs to be transcended. So these are the four padas that are being referenced in this particular shloka. The second thing this very brief shloka touches on, it establishes the introduction to Atman. And Swami Guru Bhaktananda says, this is the miniature Brahman. Remember we said, we've had these talks about where the Atman is Brahman, which is in Advaita, whereas Atman as a spark of a fire, Visishtadvaita, or completely distinct in Madhva's philosophy. Now remember, the Upanishads themselves do not present a coherent philosophical outline, and therefore it may seem repetitive, it may even seem contradictory. The commentators and the philosophers afterwards started to bring this together into a system of thought and philosophy, which is the foundation and the bedrock of our Hinduism as it is practiced today. It is the philosophers who brought all these ideas together. And this particular one, this notion of this Atman as Brahman, became very central to Shankara's philosophy of Advaita, which sees no difference between the Atman and the Brahman. And therefore, I am Atma Brahma is considered the Mahavakya, the core, the essence of this Upanishad. So this establishes the Atman as a miniature Brahman. Atma is there, but you are not God. You are a part of God. And the explanation offered is that Brahman is too vast a concept for us to grasp at once. For example, if the whole range of mountain is called Brahman, then one mountain in that range is called Atman. Just to help us as human beings with a limited intellect grasp it. Third, which we have just talked about, the Mahavakya is I am Atma Brahma. It tells us that there is an identity between the Atman within and the Brahman without. And the next 12 verses of this Upanishad are going to establish that connection between that Atman within and the Brahman outside. Okay, so three very important points established by this verse. The notion of the connection between Atma and Brahma, and the four paths relating it back to consciousness. I'm going to turn it over to Val now to lead us through a summary of why Om is considered a representation of everything. Up to this point in time, we've only done two verses, right? So up to this point in time, why is Om considered a representation of everything? Over to you, Val.
Thank you, Ranjini. So, Om is seed mantra, the primordial sound, the cosmic sound. It's a Shabda Brahman, the Pranava. Every object is associated with the sound, and Om is the sound of the vibration of Prakriti that initiated the creation of the universe. When we chant or sound Om together, we are aligning the body, mind, spirit. And we are also aligning with one another and aligning with the universe, since it's the sound of the universe. It represents a search for Brahman in the realm of sound. The three syllables, A-U-M, Om, from which all other sounds and creation emerge, signifies the supreme power. Om being the Brahman, the whole, the name of the absolute reality beyond time, space, and causation, therefore not subject to change. At the level of Atman, it plays at four levels of consciousness: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and Turiya, the true self. Atman veiled by Maya. The four states of consciousness are expanded in rest of the verses of the Upanishad. Om represents the triad of omnipresent, everywhere, omnipotent, all-powerful, omniscient, all-knowing. The creation, protection, transformation, the three personification of Brahman, the Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, the three avasthas, waking, dream state, deep sleep, the three genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter, the three kalas, past, present, and the future, the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. With this, we complete the presentation, and now we'll go to the questions. So, one, what are the Upanishads, and what is the main teaching of all Upanishads? Two, what is the focus of teaching in this Mandukya Upanishad? Three, what is the significance of Om? With this, I'll hand over to Ranjini.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you.
Let me stop sharing now and take it back to our discussion.